Hello, welcome everyone. I am super glad to be here on our monthly live stream. This month, we are going to talk about statistical analysis with Excel. Before you want to get into anything at all, tell me in the comments if you can hear me loud and clear. I did change something about my mic, so I'm a little conscious about that. So do tell me if the audio is nice and crisp. And she is itching to say hello to all of you. So I'm just gonna bring her up. This is Excel, our dog. She doesn't really like to be in this room, so I am actually gonna let her out. I can see the comments that it is nice and clear. I'm just gonna pop the welcome banner and then turn on a little bit of music, and I'm gonna let her out of the room so she can go and go downstairs and relax there. She gets stressed if she is here with all this talk. So see you in a minute, but enjoy the music. And all right, I am back, and let's stop the music. Let's see what is going on. Yes, the audio is good. That is awesome. And I'm just gonna print some of the hellos. This is Yvonne. Greetings from Netherlands, Europe. Hi, Yvonne. Greetings. Tony from Arkansas, I guess. Hi, Tony. And Philip, one of our regulars. Hi, Philip. Good to see you here. This is Vikram. Hello from India. Hello, Vikram. How are you? And we got quite a few people from all over the world, like Simi from Kuwait. And this is Hedrame from Turkey. Jobin from Kerala. And Andras from Hungary. This is awesome. Actually, I'm really thrilled to meet you all. And I have got a nice little cup of coffee, some water. You probably would have got a sneak peek of that wallboard joke that I just put up every stream. So everything is ready. Let's get into today's stream. I'm just gonna put a standard question. Tell me, what are you drinking? I'm having coffee. As I said, I was in two minds whether to get a coffee or not. And the reason is I had like such an amazing week this week. I did a live training for a client in Detroit. I didn't go to Detroit. I'm happily in Wellington, but it's all remote. And then after the live training finished, the live training was like every day in the morning between 6 to 10 in my time. So I was getting up quite early all this week. And every day I would just sit here and do the training, and in between consume a lot of coffee. So I'm kind of over caffeinated over the stretch of the week. And then yesterday evening, we went to a friend's place for some family gathering. And boy, oh boy, they had like such really good food. So I had lots of food, and it was almost 10 o'clock, well past 10 o'clock by the time we got home. And I was thinking, would I be able to even sleep with this heavy tummy? So somehow I put myself to bed, and I got up, and I'm thinking, should I have coffee or just grab a glass of water and continue? But I did manage to get some coffee because I thought, this will kind of keep my energy up all the way through the stream. Philip says I'm having a normal cup of coffee. Oh, well, you wouldn't want an outstanding cup of coffee or an abnormal cup of coffee. And then this is Dave and Sharon from Austin saying hello. Hi, Dave. Susan says strawberry smoothie from Maryland, USA. Oh, well, that is quite delicious. It sounds delicious. And Fernando says it's 9:04 a.m. here in Mexico, and a burrito emoji. So probably is it a breakfast burrito? Is that even a thing for there? And Jasmine says hello from Barbados. Thank you for the invite, Jermaine. Yeah, sorry for that. Hello. And hello from North Georgia, US, Coke Zero. Awesome. Nagesh says, Namaskar from Hyderabad, Telangana state. Namaskar to you as well, Nagesh. And we got some Turkish coffee with dark chocolate. Oh, well, this is almost now getting into like a cafe menu readouts. So, okay. So I think we got the people all lined up. It's a few minutes into the stream start. So I just do this so that, if people are finishing up another meeting or whatever, they have a chance to not miss the important bits. Not that this is not important. I enjoy talking to you all and getting to know a little bit about yourself. Let me just hide this thing. And I got a small presentation for you. So if this is one of your first times on the live stream, the way this flows is I set the agenda and then we get into the Excel file or Power BI, whichever happens to be the case. In this case, we are going to use Excel, and this is, it's not a beginner level class. So, but it's not a very, very advanced one either. Maybe we will try to do an advanced session on the statistics at a later point in this year, or maybe I'll do a proper video rather than a stream. But this is kind of, I would say, an intermediate level understanding of statistics. So let's just add my screen and share. So as you can see, this is the sample data file. I have put a link for this particular file. It's just sample data. There is no calculations or anything in the video description already. So feel free to grab a copy of that. You may have to refresh the page if you have been on the stream for more than 30 minutes. But if you have just logged in, you will have to just open the video description. You will find a sample file link. Even if you don't have this file, it doesn't matter. You can just still sit back and watch the whole thing, learn, take some notes from time to time, go back and apply them to your line of work. So that's the sample data file. I'll come back to this file in a minute, but I'm gonna just get the slides and load them up. So in fact, so this is what we are going to do today, statistical analysis with Excel. While we are using Excel as the tool of choice for doing the analysis, the concepts are universal, so you can take them and apply them for whatever platform you're using. So it could be Power BI, it could be Python, it could be whatever else. But probably the syntax and the actual approach of how you do certain things differ in those things. So the agenda for us is my aim is to cover 10 points. This is what I say, aim, rather than I'm going to do it. Simply because in a live stream environment, there is a lot of uncertainties. People can ask questions and that can kind of derail the thing, or sometimes even I can lose my thoughts. So we'll try to cover all of these if possible. The agenda is we'll start the discussion with a very simple concept of average versus median, then understand box plots, then talk about histograms, then talk a little bit about conditional averages. So how do you do average for a specific segment or specific group of data or specific conditions of data, etc. And then talk a little bit about conditional median, maximum, minimums, etc. The fifth point, that is conditional mediums, etc. There is no built-in way to do it in Excel, so we'll have to get a little bit trickery of the formula usage, and I will explain that as well. Talk a little bit about outliers, things that are not really fitting in with the rest of the data, how to identify them, how to visually spot them, how to spot them in the data through various techniques. Random sampling of data. So given a data set, how do you sample something that is completely randomized? Calculating mode and mode for text values. Understanding a little bit around percentile and rank concepts. And finally, your questions. So as you can see, 10 different items. This is going to be quite intense, fun, and useful. And most of what you're going to learn is practical hands-on stuff that you can just straight away take and put it into whatever else you're doing. Before we begin, three things: downloads, questions, and supers. So the download file is already there. It is a blank data file, not a completed data set. So I recommend that you download this blank file if you want to follow along. But if you're not following along and you're just taking some notes, then come back to the stream after the stream finishes. So probably we'll take 2 hours to complete this. So maybe give another 30-40 minutes. And at that time, if you come back to the stream page, you will find a completed workbook link as well. So whatever I build in the stream, I'll put a link for that as well. So you have that. You are more than welcome to ask questions. All questions must begin with Q. If you ask a question without that, unfortunately, I will not be able to spot it. I was just reading the statistics for the last live stream that I did in the January, and we had more than 4,000 comments. Now, I'm a single person doing both the stream, explaining things, as well as answering questions. And if I try to go through 4,000 items, I will not be able to go. That is why I have put the slow mode on this time. So in fact, you cannot kind of continuously put every comment, you must wait 3 seconds. I know it's probably a bit harsh, especially if you're trying to type something long, but start with Q. Please stay on the topic. While you're more than welcome to say whatever comes to your mind, I will not be able to address things that are not related to the topic of the day, which is statistical analysis within Excel. So that's that. And the third point is really important. Do not repeat your questions. You ask a question and I didn't come through that. Please do not post the same message again and again. This is super rude. And if I kind of spot that you're continuously abusing that, I will have to kick you out of the stream. All right. Sounds a little harsh, but I guess it keeps me sane when I'm doing this. So this is a little bit about the supers. If you really love the show, you enjoy my channel, feel free to send me a super chat or sticker. You don't even have to do it, but if you feel like, do it. So that's that. I'm gonna, people always ask me, how do I do that? In the chat window, there is a super option, and you can use that to kind of send your support like that. So that's a little bit that. This is another question that I get quite consistently in my live stream comments. How do I watch the stream in a higher quality? So I thought I'll put a quick illustration here. On the YouTube, there is a cog or the gear icon. Click on it and set your quality to as high as possible. The live stream is usually going out at 720p. That's the highest quality. So use 720p so that you don't really see any grainy bits when I'm showing Excel formulas or things like that. So that's that. Let's get over to Excel. I'm going to go back to my face for a minute so that I can read out any comments and then see what is going on with our lovely people, all the people who are tuned in. Paula says, hi all, looking forward to this great class, Chandu. Thank you, Paula. It's still very hot. And Krishna says, would the video be available after live stream? It will be available for some time, but it is going to eventually disappear from YouTube. This is the usual way I do with all my live streams. I want you to be just as committed to this as I am. So if you are online, stay around, enjoy the thing, take notes and ask your questions. But it will be there for some time, and then after that it will disappear. Okay, so I will now get into the spreadsheet, and from there we will kind of take this. Okay, so this is our sample data that we will be using to kind of ask some of the statistics questions and analyze it. I did download this particular data set from an internet source, and I was trying to find out like exactly from which place I downloaded it, because for most of my courses and training materials, I do get a lot of open data sets from various places. But unfortunately, I don't remember exactly what the source of this particular data set is. If I have to guess, it would have to be Kaggle, but I could be wrong as well. So this is not a data that I made. I'm not the owner of this data. This is just a disclaimer. But as I said, that doesn't really matter. Whatever technique you're learning, that can be applied anywhere. So this particular data set is a survey data set where a company surveyed air travel customers to understand how satisfied they are with various parts of their journey. Like you can see here, for example, I'm going to go for this very first customer here. This person here, it is a male customer. They are loyal customers, so probably have their airline membership or something like that. 45 years old. They went on a personal travel in economy. On a short flight, 413, I suppose, miles or kilometers. And this is how they rated various elements of the travel. So, for example, ease of online booking, they said 1, whereas gate location, they said 4. So, we'll assume that the higher this number is, the better it is. Again, because I don't have access to the source of the data anymore, I don't know exactly any more about this data, but that's fine. We can make some assumptions and work with that. Like onboard service, they said 5 out of 5. Certain other services, 3 out of 5. As you can see, the scale goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they did have 60 minutes departure delay, which kind of transpired into 51 minutes of arrival delay. So that is how this data is structured, and this has few thousand rows of data. Oh, I do have some stickers to acknowledge. Aaron, really excited for this class. Does that make me a nerd? No, it doesn't. It makes you another, I guess, normal person. A statistics pun, really. Juan sends in a super sticker as well. Thank you, Juan. And and Dave says, this is interesting. If legroom was rated 5 in economy, I would assume that 5 is the worst. Again, it is up to you how you want to read this data. As I said, I wish I had access to the source web page where I grabbed it so that I could go and kind of read a little bit more. But because over time I do download many data sets, this must have been obtained back in 2018 or something. So I no longer remember, and my browser history doesn't really go that far back in time. So we'll kind of just assume things here. So here, that is the data set that I have provided you with. The key thing before even you get into any kind of analysis, whether you're doing statistical or normal data analysis or whatever, is to start with a good understanding of your data source and what is going on there. So if you don't know what is going on, then it becomes very hard for you to actually analyze the data. So we did kind of not score 100% on that particular test. I do know what this is, but unfortunately I don't know so much more about this data, like how this survey is conducted, etc. But it's fine. It is a good sample data set that we could use. It has a bit of variety, so we can ask different questions. And I didn't want to randomly make up the data, because when you randomly generate the data, then many of the statistical questions kind of become a little bit irrelevant. So that's why I wanted to go with something that is a bit more real. So that's why I have this for you. And then all this data is set up in a tabular format, simply because that's how I like my data. So, and then this data is called, the table is called data. Very, very simple stuff. Now I put a topics page here, which lists all the topics that we are gonna cover. And at this point, I am going to turn off my face, and then we will get into serious Excel stuff. I'll come back and show my face a little bit later, and then we go with your questions and all of that. So the very first thing that we want to start off with is average versus median. Although that is the first topic, if it is up to me and I'm just doing the analysis, then I would not even start there. I would go with more things. But as I said, we are working under the assumption that this is not a basic class and we are moving on. So let's just say I want to analyze one of the things. It could be anything, but we'll start off with the age of our passengers. So age is what I want to analyze. I can do this sort of analysis in different places. For the sake of simplicity, if possible, we'll do the analysis on the main spreadsheet itself. That way we get to see the data and the results, everything in one place. So the easiest way to understand what is the average age of our people is, and this is the easiest, you select the data using keyboard or mouse, and then you look at your status bar. So here, right here in the status bar, it says 39.04. It's a little too small, but one of the new features in Excel 365 that they have introduced is whenever you read a number in the status bar, you can click on it and it kind of copies that into clipboard. So I can paste it somewhere else on the spreadsheet. This is basically a little bit of convenience feature rather than anything that is super helpful. This is because it's a hard-coded value. It's not really linked to your data. So if I just pick 5 values in my age column and then copy that average and then paste it, I'll get those 5 values average. So that's, but this is a new feature that they introduced. So I thought, I'll talk about that a little bit as well as part of the overall thing. So as you can see, on average, our passenger's age is 39 years. This is a good information. What I will do is I'll insert a couple more rows on the top, and this is where we can kind of do the average analysis using a formula rather than copying from status bar. So we could use the average formula. Pretty sure you would have done this. So average of my age column, so data age 39.04096. Now let's say I want to see another way of looking at this number. This is where the median comes in. What median will do is it will give you the middle point of the data if all the ages are arranged in ascending or descending order. So in this case, both average and median are really close. They are just 39. Average has a 0.04 more there. So we can kind of be sure that the average and median are representing the same thing. But in certain other cases, that may not be the case. So for example, if I copy, if I drag this sideways to flight distance, obviously we cannot average type of travel or class, so that's not relevant. Here you can see that our average flight distance is 1200, let's just say 1200 kilometers, whereas the median flight distance is 851. So here we can clearly see that average and median are two different numbers, completely different numbers. And whenever you notice things like that, that they are lining up or they're not lining up, this is a chance for you to put on that curiosity hat and then start asking questions like, I wonder what is going on there. Okay, so this is the next step for you to go and investigate the data. There is normally a saying within the statistical analysis world or general data analysis world is, the saying goes like this: always graph the data. Right? If you don't graph, you will not really be able to kind of come to a sense of what these numbers really look like or what is happening in the data. So this is why most of the statistical analysis kind of begins with a graph, then goes back into establishing some hypotheses or whatever, and then ending up with another graph. So that's the usual journey that we take. Again, it all depends on what you are exactly doing, but a good practice as always is making the graph. And this is where I feel like Excel gives you so much flexibility and so much comfort and convenience in terms of what is available and how we are able to get all of this. So that is a little bit about the average versus median side of things. And you could use these formulas, average and median, and whenever you have the formula, you can drag them and then that will add the formula to other columns. So for example, I can see that our 5-point survey scale always going to say the median is 3. And this is no surprise because there is only 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the middle point is going to be 3 and it's an obvious value. So in this case, the median doesn't add any value, whereas average clearly tells me what is going on with that particular attribute of the flight journey. So each has its own merits and demerits and in the analysis, but you will not be able to understand very well what is going on if you just look at these numbers alone. So that kind of segues us into the next topic, which is I want to understand a little bit more on how these numbers look. So the easiest way to do that is pick a column, whatever column you want to analyze, and go to insert, and here within Excel 2016 or 365, you have your statistics chart feature. This is a new feature that is added to Excel. So it is not really there in Excel 2013, but given that 2013 is 9 years old software, I'm just assuming not a majority of this stream are stuck with that, and you're at least using 2016 or 365. So you can use the statistics chart. Otherwise, what you would have to do is you would have to do another way of like a pivot chart or something. But a statistic chart is a better option in my opinion. This way we don't have to do anything, we just make it. So within that you got two options, histogram and a box plot. So let's start with the box plot and then later on we'll cover the histogram as well. So I'm going to put the box plot here on the age, and then we can see kind of how our age distribution is looking. This is my age box plot. I'm just going to Control X this and paste it here so that we have its own space for it and kind of observe this in a bit more closely. Let's see what questions are there. I did see Philip says, did the sample data come from Kaggle? I want to believe that it did because most of what I downloaded as data sets are from Kaggle. But I did search for the same file name in Kaggle yesterday and I couldn't really get any relevant results. So I don't know exactly what, where that is. Maybe the source author, they removed their files or whatever. But once you download, you have them in your computer. So that's that. Okay, Nirvik Dotel, out of topic question. This is really what I meant. Please don't ask out of topic questions. All right, that's that. But whenever you see plus or minus something, that's basically, it could be on either side. That's really what it is. Regal, how did you select all the ages in the column without selecting the rows above it? Oh, that's a very good question. To pick, especially this only works if you have data in a table format, and this is why I try to make my data into table formats before I do analysis. All you want to do is go to the column header, So here I want to, let's say, pick all my genders, go to the column header, place your cursor on the header somewhere, and as soon as it turns into that black colored down arrow, notice this cursor looks like that. It turns into black colored down arrow, click, and it selects that entire column in the table. So that's a handy tip for you when you're dealing with table style data. It only selects the data, not the header. KK says, but aren't graphs misleading as well, like when you are ascertaining normality? Yeah, but how do you know what is going on if you just don't, like, the only other way is you would have to really assemble all these people in a room, go one by one. And that's not an option that we have. So the choice for you as an analyst is how best I can describe and understand the data. And the choices are either make simple calculations like average or go to the next step. So we'll go through the journey. You'll understand that, each has its own merits and demerits. Okay, so we go to our, I'll come back to more of questions. Feel free to post them. I will read them later on. But I want to keep us moving. So we do get this box plot. I kind of zoomed out to 175%. So normally that doesn't look that comically big. But it tells me that this is how the ages of people is looking as a box. So the way to read a box plot is it will give you a box with two whiskers. So it's called box and whisker plot. And the mid portion of the box part represents the middle half of your data. So this edge represents the first quartile. So that means 25% of your data is from here to there. And then the data then goes, next 50% is in the box with the line giving you that separation between the midpoint. And then the rest 25% is here. So if I have to kind of get a good sense of who is the solid middle of my air travel passengers who participated in this survey, I would say they go from around 28 to 51. Okay, so that's really what the box plot is telling you, that a big meat of your population lies here. So that's what this is. We'll kind of circle back to the calculation bit for this at the end when we talk about percentile and rank. But in older versions of Excel, you would have to first calculate all those individual numbers. Then you will have to set up some very complicated graph that uses custom things and blah, blah, blah to get this picture. Whereas with now, it is like this. This is good, but it doesn't really kind of give me anything more that I could probably guess, but at least it tells me, where the middle is, right? We do know the midpoint is 39, but we now know that we do have a significant number of people on either sides of 39 in the middle itself. They're not like too super spaced out or anything. So that's an indication of the population. Let's talk a little bit more about the box plot itself because it is a new visual. It does offer some additional ways of dealing with it. So I'm going to try something else. This is a little bit dodgy, not dodgy, but it does work. It's just that I find that sometimes, if you don't get your clicks right, then it may not actually work. So for that, I'm going to pick my age column, hold down Control, and let's pick gender. So we selected both of these columns. Let's see what happens if I now insert a box plot. So we should get a male versus female box plot of age distributions. This is super powerful and super helpful because I can ask the same question. So is it going to look like same for the two different sets of genders that we have in the data? So male and female. And this gives me a different picture. So we can expand this a little bit so you can see, for example, our female population has higher median age. I think that midline is around 40. So we have that, and then the box is also a little bit more spread out with more younger people as well in the mid of the data. But they do have same endpoints. So They do go from around under 10 to 80, but this is giving you that. We can then switch this to, let's say, when you are doing this sort of analysis just to understand the data, you're not really making these graphs for a presentation or anything. You don't need to be super fancy with the formatting or anything. This is just for our understanding before we can then go and do some deeper analysis. So that's what usually happens at the initial stages of statistical analysis. So I made this. I'm like, oh, this tells me something, but probably not terribly helpful. While the graph is there and the male and age are highlighted in the blue boxes, I can place my mouse cursor on the edge of the gender box, and notice that as you put, the cursor changes. Notice that it is really simple thing. And once it changes, I want to click and drag. Oh, I can't do that. I made a huge fuss about that. Okay, normally you would be able to do it, but I think maybe new charts have some limitation. So I look at this, I'm happy, but I want to investigate more about other attributes, like maybe customer type. How are my loyal versus disloyal customers' age looking like? I can right click, select data, and edit my horizontal category labels. It is going to column 6. I'm just going to pick my column D, columns from C to D. Ooh, look at this. This is really interesting, right? It is now giving you a little bit more meat to work with. You suddenly uncovered something that could probably give you a little bit more to investigate and analyze and understand what is happening in the data. So for example, it tells me that our loyalty card members are usually, they're older. And it is a common sense thing as well. Like, you would expect that people who have a loyalty card for an airline, as well as, the only reason you would get that is because you travel frequently, and such people tend to travel, obviously they tend to be older, but another reason, maybe they travel a lot for work, so it does make sense for them to be on a loyalty program. This, and then within the box plot, it does have an option to bring some outliers. So for example, disloyal customers, they kind of go from here to 65 thing, but they do have a couple of outliers. So those outliers are spotted here right for you, and this gives so much more sense of what's happening. And even the median age is kind of pushed down, so you can see that as helpful. All right, I'm just going to read a few of the comments and acknowledge some of these stickers from the lovely people. Jacoda for a super sticker, and George A for a super sticker as well. Big thanks, people. All right, this is Muhammad says, how do you copy average from status bar? So this is a new feature in Excel 365. If you have an Excel 2016, 2013 or something, you cannot do that. When you point on the number, it will give you a choice to copy. So just click on it and it copies that. Will Moffat says it takes years of study to learn how to perform statistical LO analysis. If you learn from a short YouTube video, you're guaranteed to do more harm than good with your statistical analysis. That's a good disclaimer, but at the same time, it kind of discredits both the trainer and also it's not a good comment to make. I mean, many people who are watching this are probably halfway through their journey of learning statistical analysis, and they're here to learn more. But anything should begin with something. So yeah, this video is not your end point for statistical analysis. I would say this is a good solid start. Use this as your advantage and move on and learn powerful things from here on. But yeah, I guess you can say that for literally anything in the world. Like, we can't do engineering in 1 year, so let's not do it. That's not how we should be approaching it. Okay. Bushman says, can you do it in slow motion once again, the candle making? I guess you mean the box plot. I will do a slow motion. I don't know exactly how to slow motion in real life, but I'm going to try. So this is for you, Bushman. We'll make the box plot again. This is going to be super slow-mo. My face is going to be in real time though. So to make the box plot, this time I'm gonna do it for age and class of travel, just to see what ages of people travel by which in each class of flight. So I'll pick my class. So place your cursor on the class column and it turns into black down arrow. Click, column selected. Hold down the control key, go to the other column that you want to analyze, in this case age. While keeping the control hold, click on the age. Both columns are picked. So this is that. And then once these two are selected, we go to insert. From charts, you will have a statistics chart. It does look like the column chart, but it has full solid blue color in my Excel theme. So you would want to click on that. It will say statistics chart and then pick the box and whisker chart. So this is available since 2016. Click on it. It probably was doing something else here, or maybe my thing is incorrect. So I'm going to try again. Age and then class, this time this way. Box and whisker. Come on. All right. We'll just select age. Box plot. So this is just for age. Now I want to split this into economy or business or economy plus. So right click, select data, and then so this is the data series. We can now add axis labels. So I'm going to edit this bit and select my class of travel. So now that both of these are selected, click OK, and you will see the age spread for each of the three different classes of travel. For the sake of better reading, because there's a lot of values here, I'm just going to Control X that, place it in a blank page here so we can kind of look at it in a better light. I'll quickly change the colors to something else so we can read those lines. And these are the three classes of travel that we have: economy, economy plus, and business. And as you can see, the ages are like slowly going up. And again, this makes a lot of sense. Like the business class travel in typical airlines is usually very expensive. So the people who can afford that they tend to be slightly older, simply because it takes a bit more time to accumulate money or make a trade-off to say, I'm going to travel business because comfort means more to me than money or whatever. I don't know exactly what goes on. Those are the ways to understand and represent the data. But you can see within the survey sample, we have the age that is like that, and the spread is this. We do have an outlier in the business class with someone who is 80 years old all the way here, but most of the data stops there. So that's that. Hopefully that slow motion helped you. Yeah, Dave says, interesting. To quickly update the box plot, I was able to drag the blue section on numbers, but not the purple box on text. Yeah, I think this is some of the limitations of the newer charts. Like if you make a column chart, you're able to move everything around. But some of these new charts, they don't have that sort of flexibility. I don't know exactly whether that's a design choice or the developers forgot to enable this particular drag feature somewhere, and now it's just what we stuck with. Yeah, I mean, this is good. I don't want to get this into more of a unnecessary discussion because it's not helpful for anything. This is Knight Meyer says, I did a bachelor in stats and learned more from Chandu. Thanks. That is, I guess I'll take that as a very good compliment. And then we are having some back and forth going on. I don't want to engage in this. So feel free to, if you think this is not helping you, you're more than welcome to drop off this video and find something else that'll give you all something that works. Otherwise, just sit back, enjoy, take a sip of coffee, chill out and learn something, right? This is all... that's really what this is. Okay, so we made the box plot that kind of helps us understand a little bit more about the data. But as the basic idea of statistical or any analysis for that matter is always graph the data. You don't have to share these graphs or publish them, but graphing them will help you visually explore the things, right? It is one thing to say average is this, but it's another to really visually explore. So I'm going to share one simple joke. This is I try to pepper my live streams with jokes because that's one way to kind of move things along and enjoy the conversation. So a few statisticians go on hunting trip. Probably some of you would have read this joke. If not, that's fine. So they go on a hunting trip, and the first statistician, they all spot a deer. So the first one says, I'm going to take a shot at this deer. So he shots the deer. He misses it. It goes to the left. The second one tries, I'm going to take a shot again. So this one says he will shoot, and it goes to the right. The third one says, we got him, guys, because the average shot was in the middle. Right, that's really what is happening here. You just look at the average, you will not really know what is going on in the data. Same with median or same with any other number that you can calculate. Whereas if you visually go and inspect and if there is no dead deer on the forest, then you will know that, you missed all of your shots. So that's really where the visuals help you. It will give you a sense of what is happening, how things look. And with the new charts such as box plots where you can put a single column or multiple columns and it automatically splices things up, that gives super flexibility from an analytical point of view. We don't have to waste a lot of time to find the interesting things that we need to spend more time on. Because if I just want to analyze age alone and it's not giving much, the moment I go into something like class of travel or anything else, I can see that the spread is different. That is where I would spend more time in investigating the data. So going back here, another way of investigating this is a histogram. A histogram will give you the spread of the data in a more frequency and bucket fashion. So we'll go with the age again because that's what we are doing, but we could do that for flight distance or one of these other things. So let's go with age. Insert. So you already selected the age column. Statistics chart, this time pick histogram. So this is going to give you a histogram. I'm going to Control X this, put this on the next page here, Control V. And the histogram, unlike box plot, does require a little bit of customization to make more sense in the real world situation. For example, here it is splitting the number of people. Notice that this is the number of people in the sample survey dataset that you have. So it is splitting the number of people into a distribution of how many people are there between 7 to 10.6, 10.6 to 14.2. And the moment you read this, you're like, this is not how we measure age. So that's why I mean, when you make this, the default one, you're probably not going to like it. You do want to customize this into buckets that are more meaningful or relevant for the analysis that you're doing. So let's say you are doing this analysis to understand things like how well we should run our promotion programs or whatever. Then it makes a lot of sense to identify people in an age group that is easy to target or whatever. So maybe ages of groups of 10 is relevant. So I'm going to go with that. If you want to do more complicated stuff, histogram is not for you. You will have to have a pivot table or something. So I'll select this thing. Axis, Control 1 to open the format axis options, and from there and then from here where there is options, you can kind of customize. So So you can see that there is a few different ways in which we can customize this. We got category. Category is useful if you have got categorical data like loyal and disloyal customers and you want to split that frequency of that, then you can use that. Normally, I don't use category unless there is something serious involved. The automatic is what we are using. We could use bin width or number of bins options. So let's go with bin width and play around. As I said, these charts you are making to understand rather than to share the information with another person. So you have quite a bit of freedom to play around. I'm going to set my bin width to be 10 years. So it's going from 7 to 17, 17 to 27, 27 to 37. Funnily enough, this does kind of make sense. So we could probably think of 7 to 17 as kids or young people. 17 to 27 is kind of like young adult, not young adults, but people who just started work. 27 to 37, 37 to 47 could be like the middle-aged people, 47 to 57, and then we have older age. So we'll just live with that, and you can see that the distribution is like this. This is the representation of the survey data. So then you can kind of contrast this with other sources of information that you have. Let's say you have population statistics, you can use that or something else to see if this is a real representation or whatnot. But otherwise, this is that, and this is all the data. Right now, if I want to, for example, see this distribution for just my female staff or male staff, unlike the box plot, we are not able to slice this into 3 different graphs very easily. That's the limitation of the histogram, but it does give you overall how the age is looking. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'll show you another trick through which we can get this. So I can go to my data. I'm gonna, because this is already a table, go to insert menu and click on a slicer. And let's just say the things that I want to analyze are gender and then type of travel. Yeah, so let's just put those 2 things. We can put many others. So what this will do is it will add 2 slicers. You may have added slicers on a pivot table before, but notice that the slicers do work with regular charts as well. So regular tables as well. Again, available since, I don't want to make a mistake here, but I want to say 2016. Could be even earlier than that, but they've been around for quite a while, the table level slicers. What they do is they act just like filter. If I click on female, my computer freezes. Ooh, not responding. Please don't hang up on me. Okay, I'm not liking where this is going. This is the first time it happened in a live stream. Hopefully it'll recover. Otherwise we'll have to. All right, let's see what is going on the A proud liberal. Can you force the x-axis to start at 0, 10? I think by giving an underflow bin of 10, you can force it to start. The histograms are not really super customizable. They're all right, but they're not very, very customizable. Okay. This has happened, not this exact thing, but something like this happened yesterday when I was trying to make a histogram, and I had the original data of this sample survey, which had, I think, 100,000 rows. I didn't put all the 100,000 rows in the sample data file because that's just gonna be too much. So I randomly selected 3,000 or 4,000 people to put and then gave you that data. But I selected the 100,000 and I was trying the histogram. So I put the histogram and it was showing me the distribution, and I was trying to drag things around and I moved it to a text field, the histogram, and my Excel froze. So I guess it's one of those things. So here, I took a screenshot of that yesterday. Excel is not responding. And now we're back to that. All right. Not really sure. I'm just going to crash this and... ooh. that seems to have worked. I wonder why it is taking long. Probably because the graphs are all over the place. So I'm going to cut these. Control X. Oh, these slicer operations are super memory intense for whatever reason. So someone else says I'm having the same issue. So I guess it's not really me. That's comforting. And then place them here. Fingers crossed this will work. I will delete these slicers as soon as we are done with this part of the thing. So when you have a slicer linked to the chart, just collapse the ribbon and get rid of this. So when you have a slicer on the table and then you are making a graph, if you click on the slicer, the graph updates. So this is the beauty. So if I click on mail, if and when my Excel decides to run that operation, I will see this graph update. Okay, this seems to be a really bad idea. I apologize for this kind of thing, but hey, we have all been there. So I'm just going to restart my Excel. That's probably meanwhile, let's switch back to my face. So all right, so it did recover something. I'm going to use this one, save this. Stream. And okay, so we no longer have our age histogram. I'll quickly insert that one. So that's the age histogram. For now, I'm not going to bother with the slicer things because it seems like a really messed up thing in the Excel. So select the axis, control 1, bin width 10. The question someone asked is, can we actually force this to start from 0 or something? So I'm going to try with this underflow bin and then see what happens. Start from 0. Oh no, that's not, it doesn't like that. Yeah, so if you really want to go from 10, 20 like that, one option seems to be using that underflow. Oh, I'm not sharing myself. Right. Sorry, I thought I'm sharing the screen. I'm not firing on all my engines today. Okay, so here we got the graph. Again, I recovered the file and then I put that. So the question someone asked is, this is how it looks. Can we start this from 10, 20 like that? So one option is you will go to the axis, format options, control 1. And from here, you can set an underflow bin. So this option there. It's kind of set to default values, but if I put it at 10, then I'm going to get a graph like this. So less than 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, like that. So that is the histogram. Again, using box plot and histogram, I'm able to explore the data and then see how my data is looking at that level. So this is the age distribution. If I want to understand just the male, like I said, you could use a slicer, but slicer seems to crash my Excel. So the other option would be I'd go to gender and then just filter my table to have only male customers. Hopefully this is not crashing Excel as well, because then I would be really disappointed. Spoke too soon, I guess. So this is, I guess the idea is don't try this or at least don't try this on live stream. But so Eben asks, is stat analysis possible in Power Query? Surprisingly, yes. But the way it works is it's not really meant for this sort of analysis, but it is meant more from a data cleanup or data understanding at that level perspective. So I wish I could show you, but because this is not a Power Query session, I don't really want to kind of derail it there. But if you open data in Power Query and go to the view ribbon and enable a couple of different options, I think one is data quality and another something else. It's going to show you distribution of data and whether the data has any blanks or errors and all sorts of things. So it's a very useful little thing that I often use within Power Query. The key thing to remember though is Power Query, when it is fetching and showing the data in the query editor, it by default only samples the data. So it will only get the top 1,000 rows of your data to show you what it is there. Whereas your data set might be actually 10,000 rows or 20,000 rows. So the graphs and everything analysis, I think default is shown just for your sample of what is picked up in the first 100 rows. Okay, so finally it woke up. I mean, there's not lot of data, 3,000 rows, so I would not expect Excel to take forever, but probably because I'm doing live stream and screen sharing and multiple things, it's kind of getting a little cuckoo there. So if I filter that, then I will get my male customer distribution here. That's really the point that I was hoping to make. We could do that with slicer. We could do with the table level filter. Whichever way you go, you filter there, you come back here, you will see how the distribution is and kind of make a visual sense of if things are same or different or not. I'm going to delete, no, I don't want to delete this because you probably want to refer to that. So I'll clear this filter and force my Excel to get into another loop of calculations. While it finishes its thing, let's just see what else is there. Feel free to post some questions and I'm happy to answer them. Chris often says, you know, you're a pro Excel user when you can crash it regularly. Oh, well, we did find a way to crash it now consistently 3 times. So I guess it's somehow these graphs are kind of forcing Excel's hand here. So remind me to not filter the data again for the rest of the stream. All right. So that is the first 3 things. And that'll give you a sense of what the data is like. Let's get into a little bit more formula work, which is conditional averages, conditional median, and then talk a little bit about outliers. And let's just hope that we will not get into hiccups like this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this particular one, Sujay Nazare. Hi Chandu, is Excel sufficient for performing all types of data analytic operations, as nowadays companies expect us to know a variety of tools? This is a little dicey question to answer, but to be honest, I feel like learning Excel is super valuable, and it's probably worth knowing all the, like, not at a superficial level, but knowing at an in-depth level can make you look like a rock star in many, many situations. So this has happened personally to me, and I'm a huge advocate of that. But at the same time, I see, even when I talk to people who are doing hardcore Python work or hardcore Power BI stuff, I hear them making statements like, oh, time to time I use Excel and I do this or I do that. So the skill is super valuable, super helpful, and do not discount it. If you're doing really just 8 hours a day only programming, then probably Excel has no place. But otherwise, learning this skill can take you a lot further than not learning it. So that's really my take on this at this point. Alt AC. Yeah, so I think Alt AC is for clearing filters. The other shortcut that I use is Control Shift L. So it kind of ons and offs the filter, and that is also something that I can use. FR says, can we make a chart format to a default which we want, i.e. a bit faster? You should be able to create a chart style or something like that. It's a little too out of the way for our topic here. But feel free to investigate. I think if I'm not wrong, there used to be an option, maybe it no longer is or whatever, but you can create a chart template and then reuse that. Someone else, if you know the answer, feel free to help them. Okay, so we go back, the conditional averages, conditional mean, median. So this is another way of exploring the data. Instead of calculating a single average, you can calculate the conditional average. And there are a couple of ways to do it. I'm going to show you the easier one first, and then we'll circle back to a slightly trickier one because that might be helpful in a different situation. So to make a conditional average, here what I want to understand is, if you look at my in-flight Wi-Fi service average response, it's 2.74. And I want to know how that number would look like for different classes of travel or different types of customers or genders or age groups. So this is where the easy option would be to insert a pivot table. So I'm going to insert pivot and new worksheet. And within this pivot, I can put whatever I want. So let's start the analysis from type of travel. Obviously, we could kind of start with I don't want to say it hypothesis and offend serious practitioners, but let's just say we want to start with the notion that people who are on a business travel would expect a little higher from the in-flight Wi-Fi service than the people who are on a personal travel. Because you're traveling for business, you may want to finish off some emails or whatever, so you would have a little bit higher hopes for the Wi-Fi service, and probably by argument you may get disappointed if it's not meeting that. So I'm going to put in-flight Wi-Fi service as a value on there. The default is going to be summing it up, but we don't want to sum this up, we want to average. So right click, show summarize average, and we will get the answers. So here the result is kind of I don't know, for lack of better words, it's not really what I was hoping to see, but that itself is information. Again, you can't really say yes or no for a notion like that. You would have to go and do more experiments to establish that. But to start off, you can see that people who are on a business travel are having a higher satisfaction rating for in-flight Wi-Fi service than people who are on a personal travel. Without knowing more about the way data is collected and what things mean, it might be hard for us to actually ask deeper questions here. But that would be the next logical point. Let's say you are analyzing this data. Chances are you would have greater access to the metadata or the information about this data than I have. So you would know exactly how the survey is run, what sort of people are on this and that and all of that. So then you will be able to ask more questions. But given our time limit and what we are doing here, this is a very good start. We can see what that is happening. And with the pivot table, I can kind of get this just in a few seconds. I don't have to write any formulas or anything. And the pivot tables themselves offer many more flexibilities. So for example, I can then say within class how this is looking. So I can put my type of class and then I can see this. So this is an interesting revelation here. People who are on economy plus have a very higher, like you can see that everybody is in around 2s, but these people are 3.15. So this is a kind of like a really clear difference between this and that. And you could then probably go and kind of maybe investigate that. So that's a little bit there, but same on business travel. People who are doing that for personal thing, they're not just as satisfied. So you can go and start asking more questions like, hey, what's happening here? And that's a good way to explore that. Okay, so this is number one technique for doing conditional averages. Let's say I want to know what is the median for this, right? Of course, in this case, the median question is kind of like a useless question, because on a 5-point scale, the median is always going to be midpoint, which is 3, assuming you have at least one response for each of the values. If for whatever reason, if we don't have any response for number 1 or number 5, then the median is going to change, but otherwise it's going to be always 3. But let's just say you want to do the median, or you want to understand what is the median age of these people. So I put my age, change this to average. I can see average age of people like that. But if I want to ask the median question, summarize values by, there is no median option here. I can go to more options. We don't see that there. Now there are two choices for you. Number one is you can still use pivot tables. And I'm a huge advocate for using pivot tables whenever possible to get the answers, especially for ad hoc situations like this, because they give you quite a lot of flexibility of reshaping the layout or adding filters or slicing or dicing the data. And that option is you can use a special type of a pivot called data model based pivots or power pivot. So I'm just going to quickly show that. So you will insert a pivot from this table. And when you are doing that, instead of just clicking, you will add this to data model. So this is the only extra step that we need to do. We'll click that. This is going to set up a different type of pivot table. At a high level, it still looks the same. And now I'm just going to put type of travel, class, and then age here. Notice this is still same, summarize, average, but let's just see what other options are there. So more options. This doesn't also have a median option. Not here, there's no median, but because it is coming through the data model, we can build that as a formula. So I can right click on the data in here, this place, right click, and it will show me add measure option. So add a measure, and then I can write median age. And within this thing, we can simply say median of age column. Okay. Ideally, you want to say data age. That's a good practice rather than saying age. So median of age as a number with 1 decimal point. And then boom, you will now have median age as a calculation available within this pivot. And I can put that, I can see what is the median age of these people. Average is 39, but median is 37. So this is giving you a completely different view of the data, slice it down to those individual level. So this whole concept is called Power Pivot. And again, this is not a class on Power Pivot. It is a class on analysis. So you could use Power Pivot to do this kind of median, etc., which are not traditionally available in the pivot tables. But let's just say you couldn't use this for whatever reason. This thing is available, by the way, since Excel 2013. So you should be able to do it quite easily in any version of Excel, modern version. But you don't want to do it, or whatever may be the reason, you want to write a formula. Then you can use Excel formulas to do that. So I'm going to do a formula version of this. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to do it at this level. So we got business, echo plus, and I just want to calculate, we'll call this as class, average age, and then median age with formulas. I just want to make sure that it doesn't, oh it does, this is just indented, right. So for average age, you could use the average if formula, average ifs, and then specify the column that you want to average up. So in this case, that is my age column. So data age, and then specify the criteria. So data class of travel is right here, F5, and then click, you'll get that. And then you just drag this down, you will see the average age by each of the classes of travel. For median age, unfortunately, there is no median ifs formula, only median is there. So this is where, depending on the version of Excel, you could use one of the two formulas. Let's say you got Excel 365, which is what I'm running. I'll show you one formula that works. All we want to do is first filter all the business class travelers' ages. So we could use filter function for that. Filter data age column, where data class is equal to business. What filter would do is it will get you only the ages of people who are in the business class, and it will kind of give you a big range, and the range will spill down. And from this, you just send this to median, and then you'll get the median age like that. So for each group, you'll get their median age. Let's double check this. So I'm going to take this and then take away type of travel. You can see 41.69, 69, 43, 43, 35, 35, 38, 38, 39.22. The numbers match. This is perfect. Let's say you haven't got Excel 365 and you're using an older version of Excel. So this is another formula that you can use, median age, old Excel. And this one is, you can use if function. So if data class is equal to business. Notice that here we are not using a single value comparison. We are taking an entire column and then comparing it with the single value here. So this if function returns an array of true or false values. So wherever their class is business, it will say true. Wherever it is not, it will say false. So for true, we want their age. For false, we don't want anything. We'll just omit that argument. And what this will do is, it will give you 42. First four people are not business travelers, so they're false, like that. We can then take this and then send it to median. And in older versions of Excel, once you type this formula, you should press Control Shift Enter. You don't have to do that if you're using Excel 365. In fact, if you're using Excel 365, you don't even need this formula. But if you're using older version, after you type this median if formula, you press Control Shift Enter and you'll get the answer. Same thing. So this is that syntax. This is this syntax. As I mentioned, at the end of the stream, I will upload this file. So in case you want to copy these formulas or whatever, you can easily do that. So that's median age, average age. We can use this pattern here, median of something something, with a filter, or median of, and then if, that whole pattern to do these kind of conditional things for anything else in Excel. So we could get minimum, maximum, median, percentiles, rank, whatever you want. You could do this kind of a technique when you have conditions. I just want to acknowledge Patrick for a super sticker as well. Thank you, Patrick. And Gagan says, nice to see you live. Nice to see you there. Thank you. Bushman says, what about if A1, A2, A10 greater than 10, B2, B10, and do median on? You can apply the same logic there as well. So for example, I can ask a question like, what is the median age of travelers who are going long distance? Okay. This is a very, very specific question, but in that case, we can use the flight distance as a parameter. let's say for the sake of argument, long distance is anything more than 1,000 kilometers. So long distance is 1,000 kilometers. So we just define that as a parameter. I'm going to fill some yellow color there so it's easy for us to spot that. And then we'll do median age. So filter, I'm using filter syntax, but the approach is same. In older versions, you would just use if. So filter data age, data distance, flight distance is greater than that. So that's going to give you all the ages of people who are going long distance, and then we just send that to median. And you'll get that. And you can kind of, because it's a parameter, I can see what kind of people are going long distance. I would not imagine there should be any, like, people can go anywhere for whatever reason. There is nothing that age will determine how far you will travel. So this is fine. And we can kind of change this or change the condition itself, like how many people are traveling less than that distance. If you want, you will just change that direction of the operation, and then that will give you that. So Parnesh asks, how can we use array formulas in 2019? This is a very open question. So my recommendation is, I would ask you to go to my website, chandu.org, and then here in the topics, here in the formulas ribbon, there is a section called array formulas. Refer to that. This will take you to a page where we have a whole series of articles that discuss various types of advanced formula techniques, including array formulas. So highly recommended that you read it. But if you are using Excel 365, then I would encourage you to read up a little bit more about dynamic arrays. Again, there is a video on that on the channel, as well as there is an article here. So whichever works for you, read that up. I'm going to come back to this question, Bushman. For now, I'm just going to take that. Okay, so let's go to the next topics. So we did do the conditional average and conditional median, max, min. I did only show median, but max and min are same logic. If you just want to do the max or min, a better alternative would be to use the pivot table. So in the pivot table, I can put, for example, we can say what is the maximum age these people are, maximum distance they have gone. I can put flight distance and then change this to summarize value by max. You can see, surprisingly, this one is lower. Like, I don't know exactly what's going on. Maybe economy plus is not offered on all distance categories. So that could be another reason. My coffee is still warm, which is really refreshing. So that's that. But if you want, Excel does have, this is something new and not many would realize, there is no median if function, but there is max ifs and min ifs. These are added a while ago. So probably 2019 Excel users might see them. I don't think 2016 users would see them, and Excel 365 people will definitely see them. So max ifs and min ifs are there. They are exactly like average and sum ifs. Use them to get the maximum or minimum condition questions. Let's go back to topics, talk a little bit about outliers and then random sampling and then these things. When you are analyzing data, one of the interesting things to know is there anything, is my data all like following the same pattern, or is something really standing out? Okay. And this question is, while it does appear simple, it is a very technically complicated question to answer. For example, let's imagine a room full of, just imagine a room where I am standing, but 10 people like me are also standing. So just people like us, average people, okay, for the lack of better words. And then Bill Gates walks into the room. Now we could say when you compare at an income level, Bill Gates would be an outlier in that room because he is super rich, right? So if I plot the income scale, I'm not as rich as Bill Gates. Well, not yet. But so all the income scale, then you would see that Bill Gates is like a truly different level than rest of us. That's one way of looking. But now go to a different room where Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and I don't know, some other rich people in the world, they're all standing and they're having like discussions. And then I walk into that room. Then I become the outlier, right? So this is really what an outlier would look like. But we can take this further and then imagine a room where Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and all these rich people are having a dinner meeting with the poorest of the world. So these are the richest people, 10 richest people, and then let's imagine the same room, they're hosting 10 of the poorest people in the world, and they're all having dinner conversation. And then I walk into the room. Now, who is the outlier? Within that room, that distribution, you got 10 people on either side, and then I am the one probably somewhere sitting in the middle, right? So then I become the outlier. So many times the name outlier represents something that is out, but sometimes it could be inside as well. So this is a really important distinction that you need to get into your mind before you get into analysis. For example, in the sample flight data, imagine a column like online booking is, the ratings are all just either terrible, which we'll say is 1, or excellent, 5. So everybody is either saying, oh, this is the worst online booking site ever, or oh my God, I have never seen something as beautiful and pretty as this. And then there is one customer who is saying, meh, it's average. Now that customer would be the outlier in your data because according to your data, it should be either 1 or 5, and anyone giving 3 is not a normal value according to that. So that is one way of looking at it. The way to find it or the way to visualize it all depends on different techniques and how your data is and what the distribution is and all of that. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the Excel techniques that you could use, but not going to go into super depth because, as I said, it's a very deeply technical thing. I want to plant the ideas in your mind so that you can take that forward when you are doing your further analysis on this data set or whatever else you have got going. So let's say I want to understand the outliers on a specific thing like flight distance. My starting point would be to use something that is already there rather than reinventing the wheel. So this is my box plot. A box plot can identify outliers. So here it is saying this is my distribution of travel distance, and these are the points that are outliers. The problem with this is it will only plot. It's not gonna. I did see some tooltip, but it's not going to give you greater detail on where these points are, but it is telling you through the indication here that anything more than, let's just say this is 3,800 is an outlier. There could be outliers on this side as well. But if the data is solidly in the middle, this will not be able to identify that as an outlier. So that is something that you will have to know. But if you think the travel distance would be fairly normal, from a statistical sense, that is, it kind of follows that bell curve pattern, then anything that is on either edges is outlier. So here it's going to identify those things. So this is one way. It will give you that indication where those points are, and then you can just go and filter for them. I am very hesitant to apply filters at this point because those of you who are watching for a while, you do know what happened when we did filtering last time. So I'm going to play it safe, but you can apply filters to narrow down the outliers. So that's one thing. Another thing with an outlier analysis is when your data has outliers, let's say going back to that room with 10 of people like me and Bill Gates, and we're trying to do some average income analysis or average stock market valuation analysis or whatever it is, then ideally we would want to exclude Bill from that. we do know that he's super rich. So there is no point including him and boasting that, oh, we're all billionaires here. That will be untrue. So the correct way of doing that would be exclude some of these outliers. So how would you ignore like values that are super on the either extremes? So that's where you can use some formulas. This is kind of goes back to the conditional formulas. So the first formula is trim mean. What trim mean does is it calculates average but excludes a portion of data on either sides, because outlier could be on either side in a typical normal sense. It will not exclude any outlier that is in the middle. So for example, flight distance, average is data flight distance 1200 kilometers. But if I want to exclude the bottom 10% and the top 10% of the flight distances, so flight distance middle 80, this is where trim mean can be helpful. So trim mean, if you read the help, it's going to say returns the mean of the interior of the data set. That's what it is reading there. F12. Interior of the data set. Trim mean calculates the mean taken by excluding a percentage of data points. Percentage is whatever percent you give, it's going to exclude that on both sides. So that's really what it does. So data flight distance, and then if I put 0.1, it's going to take away 0.1 from either side, 10%. So if I exclude the bottom 10% of the flight distances and the top 10% of the flight distances, and just look at the middle 80%, then the average flight distance is 1100 kilometers. So not much of a difference. So this is kind of telling me that it's not super like going either way, but that's one way of understanding that. Dave says, we did find that if you convert your table to a range and then put back to your table, filtering and slicing works again. That's a good one. Now that I've got a couple of pivot tables and the data model going on, I would probably not want to try that, but feel free to try it and let me know. So Vipin says, what are the advantages of statistical analysis compared to regular analysis using pivots, charts, etc.? So this is where it's kind of like splitting the atom, for the lack of better words. But in some cases, you do need to do statistical analysis because you are starting off with the data that is not fully representative of everything that you have. Like you're analyzing your sales, then you will have all your sales data there. Then it makes sense to just analyze it rather than poke statistical questions at it. But if I'm analyzing a survey sample of my data, so these are not all my customers. I only surveyed some of them to know how satisfied they are with various aspects of their flight journey. And based on that survey sample, then I want to make some general assumptions or general statements about the overall thing about our flight journeys. So in this case, because we don't have access to all the millions of people flying around, our easier option is to go through statistical analysis to establish certain things. So this is where you start off. You can apply the same techniques even to normal data sets, but this is a class of techniques that as a data analyst you need to have. You in a typical toolbox, you will have screwdriver, hammer, and various types of different things. And you can say, I got a good hammer here. Why can't I use it for everything? And that's really what your statement would be. So you need to have these tools, different tools, and then depending on what you're dealing with, you will have to apply them. All right, let's. So this is trim mean, but the trim mean is a bit brutal. It was just gonna go and take away 10 on either side without actually excluding the outliers. So to find a true outlier, you will have to use different types of techniques. So there is techniques like clustering and then finding the distance and all of that. So those are a bit more technical, and typically they themselves will take an hour to explain. So I'm not going to go into those details, but if you think there is an outlier in your data and you want to, for example, easily exclude, this is one choice. You may have to use other techniques to identify and use them as well. So let's go back. Random sampling of data. This itself is random sample of the data because there's a survey data of 100,000 rows. I sampled how many? 3,000 out of that for explaining in this live class. So we are now doing a random sampling rather than random sampling. But let's just say I got some data here and I want to just take a sample of 10 rows. Can I just take the top 10 rows or any 10 rows? Or do I want to keep it completely random? So that's where random sampling comes in. Random sampling simply means you close your eyes, you put your hand in the bag, pick out the things. You don't know what you're going to get. And every time you run it, you will get different things. And random sampling is a powerful way to ensure that any outcomes or any things that you are going to say will happen are not biased based on the selection. So how to get random samples within Excel? There are many different techniques that you can use here. In older versions of Excel, the easier option to do this would be, again, there are two different options. So we'll start with the easy option. And this is also very helpful as well. Is you can go to data and use the data analysis tool pack. This is by default also hidden. And you can enable this from Excel add-ins if you have got developer ribbon. Otherwise, you can go to File, Options, Add-ins, and Manage Excel add-ins. Go and then enable the analysis tool pack. So once you enable that, you should be able to use this. Go to Data Analysis. And from here, it has many different types of analysis options. You could do Run ANOVA. You can do covariance, descriptive statistics, all sorts of things, one-click stuff. But it does also have sampling option using which you can generate a random sample. I almost never use this method because it's a bit clunky. Instead, what I do is I'm going to Control C because we have had some bad experience with the filters on this thing here. I'm just playing it safe. I'll make a new workbook, paste it there, and then we're going to play around with this. So let's just say this is the data that I have and I want to take a random sample. One easy option is you can go to anywhere. Ideally, I want to just go to the very edge of the table, and from here I'm just going to type R and equal to rand. So rand is a random number generator function in Excel, and it will add a random number to the table. Because it's a table, any formula you write is gonna spill down and have the same formula across the table. So we got random numbers there, and these numbers will change. If I press F9, you can see that these numbers are changing. And once you run the rand, you simply sort small to largest. Notice that as soon as you finish sorting, the numbers will change again. But essentially what you have done by sorting is you have shuffled the numbers. So now that the numbers are all shuffled, you just pick the first 10 or 20 or 30, how many hour sample size you want, rows of data, copy paste it wherever else you want, and you have your random sample. The disadvantage of this method is it is a bit manual. So if you want to also keep your samples dynamic and you do something and the sample changes or whatever, then you will have to get a bit more creative with your data. But using simple option is add a random number, sort it, and then take first few rows. Or if you just want to shuffle your data, this is also another good option, just adding the random number. I'm going to delete that. I'll show you second technique, which is to pick a random number of rows. And this is where really the the Excel 365 shines. It has got some beautiful formulas for us to sample data. So I'll show you random sample. This formula only works in 365, which is basically we want to take, let's say, 100 rows sample from this data table. So I can use filter function to do such a thing. So filter data table. If I don't say, for example, if I don't even have filter, if I say equal to data, I'm going to get a complete copy of the data here as a spilled range. We don't want this. We just want any random 100 rows. So I'm going to filter this data. We'll actually build this one step at a time so it's easy to understand. So I'm going to take sort by data, and then I want to sort this in a random order first, because that's what we are doing manually anyway. We're adding a random number and then sorting. So that's really what we're going to do here as well. Take the data and then sort it in a random order. So data is already there. Now I have to give the by array, which should be a bunch of random numbers same size as my original data. So here I can use the rand array function. Rand array, how many random numbers I want? I want same number of random numbers that is equal to my data size. So we can use count A to count, we're just going to use rows to count how many rows are there in the data, and then make that many random numbers. So this is going to shuffle the data. Notice that this data is same sized, but it is all shuffled up. And every time you press F9, the data changes. It's basically shuffling. So once the data is shuffled, we are just going to get the very first 10 or 20 or 30 rows of this data as a sample. Here you could either use filter or you can also use index. I'm just going to use index. So we want to index this data and then get first 10 rows. So here you can use sequence and then say 10. It's going to only get you the very first column alone. I think if I, no, it's not liking that. So sequence 10 and then columns of data. Yeah, no, that's not correct. Ideally at this point it should work. It is having the data, but it doesn't want to show me that. So okay, I'm going to call it even there and then just leave it. But essentially the column parameter for the index need to be equal to the number of columns there. For some reason I'm not able to get that. I think I might know what is going on. Yeah. Okay, so that's the pattern that we will follow. We'll take the sort on a random order and then just use index to fetch the first 10 rows. This is a bit of dicey thing. So if you find this too clunky to use, or you're thinking, not worth the extra effort to just get a sample, then use one of the other two techniques, which is go to data, use data analysis, and then get the sample from the sampling option here. Or the easier thing, and this is how I normally do my samples, add a random number, sort it, and then just pick the first few rows as your sample. So that's sampling. I'm going to just take a quick look at the comments to see. So a proud liberal says, how would you include skewness into your analysis? That's a good question. So there are a couple of functions that you can use to measure the skewness. So I think skew, and then it can tell you. To be honest, it has been quite a long time since I used these functions. I don't really do statistical analysis for a living. I am more like an enthusiast rather than a practitioner in this space. but I do know Excel very well, so I enjoy working with that. But skew is there. There is a kurtosis function as well. So you could use that to get the skew statistics that are in the data. Another option is you could also use the visual route to kind of get a sense of how your data is. And then if there is skewness exhibited, then you will go and measure it. So that's the normal practice. You will first graph it, then you will get a sense of, oh, this is looking weird, and then you will get the skewness, which means it's kind of moving this way or that way. Songs featuring Google Assistant. I hope that's not the real name, but can missing data value in cells be filled with average? That's a very, very good question. So this kind of a process is called imputation, where if you do not have certain data points, you could then fill them up with a value that could be the common value in the data, like mode or average or median or something else, or you can even ignore them. I would do such kind of a process within Power Query rather than in Excel. This is because I would categorize that as missing or data cleanup process. So usually before even you come here, you would do a stage of data cleaning steps, and that might be part of your exploratory analysis. So even before you do all of this, you would kind of do a sense check of data, and normally that would happen within Power Query. So if Power Query says there are all these, this column has 17 missing values, then I would write a transformation within Power Query to replace them with the average of the group. Or I could also delete them if I have big enough sample and I think these values are not going to add much, I'm going to delete them. So that's how you can do that. Philip says, is it time to retire the one-click Microsoft Data Analysis Toolpack add-in and time to move on from the even more obscure? I don't know. You think so? I mean, I haven't used Data Analysis Toolpack in a long time, but I do find that, for example, if you want to do some ANOVA or something, it's an easier option than building all the formulas yourself. But yeah, feel free. What do others think? Put your comments so we can see. Oh, I'm out of coffee. And Sujay says, can you please take up time series analysis topic someday? Looking forward to learn more from you. Thanks for the good suggestion, Sujay. I will definitely address that in a future stream or in a bunch of videos. It's a kind of like a very big topic, and I'm hesitant to handle deeply technical topics in a live stream because then it's kind of hard for me to carry everyone along. But we'll see, what the appetite is. So feel free to bring that up again a few more times until it happens. But I am aware, and I'm gonna add some information on the channel anyway. Is there an easy way to overlay a normal plot over a histogram? I mean, you can. There are a couple of things to think about here. Like, is it normal, and do you want to force it to be normal? And if so, what is normal? So all of those are like the theoretical questions that you need to first think about, and then add it. For example, I'm going to show a very cheeky and sneaky way of doing this. This is simply because it is a question that people ask. So I will show you a very simple way of doing that. We don't really know if that is normal or not, but at least it will give you that satisfaction that, yeah, we are adding a curve. It's not going to be terribly accurate, as I warned, which is insert a pivot table. You don't want to use the data model for this. And I'm going to put my age into the rows. This is going to give you one age per row. I'll hide your comment for now. And then we'll take something else like ID or whatever and then put it into the values just to count how many people are there. This is going to sum up the ID, but if I just say count, it will tell me how many people are there at each age, individual, specific, distinct age. Once you have that, because age is a number and the data is coming from a regular pivot, not a data model pivot, I can right click, I can say group, and I can create that sort of a histogram here as well. So I can say automatically group my ages from 0 to 80 by 10 years at a time. So this is gonna give you that. At this point, I will insert a, let's just say we'll put a column chart for now. And you can kind of say that this thing right here is, I should have named these things, similar to that, the distribution of ages, but this is coming from the statistical chart, whereas this is my pivot chart. So same distribution, it's a column chart, so the column gaps and everything is there. We can format it, but that's not really relevant. Okay, so this thing is there. Now we want to overlay a curve on this to indicate the normal thing. Ideally, you would want to calculate the thing and then put it, but let's say you are lazy and you just want a curve there. The easier option is you'll take the ID again and put it on the pivot, change it to count again. So you got 2 columns, and then select the second column, right click, change series chart type, and we will make the second one a line. So it will have a line view of that. Pick the line, Control 1, format the line, go to format options. And for a line, you have a smoother line option. So you can add a smoothed line that kind of evens out the jaggedness and gets you some sort of a distribution curve, if for lack of better words, really. Notice that that is not a normal curve. It is the distribution of your actual data. Okay, so this is the easy cop-out route. It's not technically the normal curve. I want to reiterate that. And to get the normal curve, you must actually follow the rest of the step and either normalize the data. But that is where it gets more technical. You will have to start with the basic question that, is it even normal, or am I trying to force fit this into a normal curve? Or a better alternative, which is what I would do, is this is my data and then I will overlay a curve or an area that is representative of the general population or general population of our customers or something like that. So then we can get a better sense. Okay, enough that. Abu says, can we use the scatter chart to see outliers for categories? That's a good question. Feel free to try that. I might come back to that, but I'm just going to go to my topics to make sure that we're not missing anything else. So we did the random sampling. I'm going to talk briefly about mode. Mode is basically, you got your mean. Mean is the average, median, midpoint, and mode is the most frequent value in the data. So that's what the technical definition of mode is. Usually when you are doing certain analysis, you don't want to go with either average or median. You want to go with mode because that will give you a better sense of what's happening. Again, depending on what you are analyzing, what the end purpose is, you'll have to pick your statistics correctly. So that's why I'm introducing everything. So you will then be able to make the choices yourself. So I'm going to show you the basic formulas here. Mode. Let's say I want to understand what is the mode of our traveler age, like what is the most frequent age. So you can use the mode function. Mode, there are 3 different modes: mode smart, mode single, and then mode like an older version. That's for compatibility purpose. Mode mult will return a vertical array of most frequently occurring repetitive values in an array or range for horizontal, blah, blah, blah. Essentially what mode mult will do is if there are two values that are frequent, then it's going to return both of them. So that's what mode mult will do. We'll try the mode single and then data age. So 36 is the most common age in our data. I'm going to just try mode mult as well just to see if that's any different. Mode mult. Data age 36, so it's the same value. We get that. The mode function is gonna only give you a single mode for the data, but if you want I can ask questions like mode for female versus male travelers. So for example, I can put my female, male here, and then use the filter option, filter data age, data gender is equal to this thing here and that's going to give all the male ages, and then feed this to mode single or mode mult, whichever you want. So average most common female age is 48, most common male age is 39. So this is giving you a completely different picture than a single mode. You can see that most frequent female is 48 years old. Again, this is most frequent. A good idea would be maybe even ask a question like how many times this is happening. Okay, so if you are using the filter function, you could kind of take the filter, Control C, and then just send it to the count function. Ooh, that's not correct. Because it's telling me 1591 females are there. We need to know how many of them are 48. So I don't want to use filter anyway. I'll use the countifs. That's a better option. So data gender is female. Data age is here. So 50 female passengers are 48 years old, 43 are 39. Now if you look at our overall sample size, count of data age, we can count on anything. We'll just count here 3000. So out of 3000 people, 50 are 48 years old, 43 are 39 years old. Now if I'm making any decisions based on this information, I'm using less than 5% of our data to make that decision, and that's not a good decision. So while mode does have a place in data analysis, you will want to use it cautiously for things. So this is, but knowing about it will help you in places. Mode will only work for numbers. What about text values? So I'm gonna go here and we got many text values. I think I'll pick this one. And then I want to see what is our most frequently represented travel mode. So class, if I try to do mode on either mode mult or mode single, it doesn't really matter. Data class, I'm going to get an N error because the class column itself is not a number. So it's not going to work. One technique is to use Power Query or something else to transform that into a scale of 0, 1, 2 or whatever, and then calculate the mode and then do a VLOOKUP or whatever to go back there. But that's just too clunky. So this is where Excel 365 again comes to rescue. It offers a good bunch of formulas that will help you. But because not everybody would have access to that, I'm going to show you a different technique. You can probably even guess it. It is to use pivot tables. They are super easy, pivot tables. So if you're not using them for this sort of analysis, you should seriously get on board as soon as possible. I can just put my class here and then take something else like an ID to count how many people are there. Sort largest to smallest, values by count. And then I applied already sort order largest to smallest. So we can see that business class people are the most represented in our sample here, 1400, followed by economy and then economy plus. So this is at an overall data level. I can then add a gender representation to see what is the most frequent thing, or I can do my age. Notice that in a previous pivot table, we spliced the age by groups. So it's going to give you that, and then it'll tell you what the count is. So anything that is highest in that column is the highest representation. So this is how you can calculate mode for text values very, very quickly using the pivot table. But if you want, you can also use formulas. That would just take a bit more work, in my opinion. All right, so that brings us to the 9th topic, percentile and rank. I am thinking, I'll skip that simply because it's kind of loosely related to the median concept. Median is the 50th percentile. So percentiles, you can use the percentile formula to do that. So I will skip that and I'll instead spend time addressing some questions. There are some very interesting questions coming up, and then see what else we could do. Dave says, how did you get the pivot table to group ages in buckets of 10? It was a few minutes back, but you would need to set up a pivot table without data model, and then right click on put the age. Here, right? So then we have the age here, and then you would need to go to group option, and then from there I put 0 to 80 split by 10. So that's how that does. Once you group in a single pivot, any other pivots that you make from the same data without data model will all refer to age as these groups only. They'll not have the individual ages anymore, because that grouping is now a shared parameter across all other pivots within Excel from that data. You can't do this kind of grouping with the data model. With the data model, you will have to have a mapping table. And there are a couple more videos on my channel that get into a little more detail about grouping. So feel free to search them up and enjoy them if you want to learn more. Adnan says, how can we calculate weekly, monthly, yearly average or sum in a pivot? You would need to have a date field to begin with, but once you have that, you just put the date and then group the date, or have a mapping column that tells you by week or month or whatever, and then just apply rest of it. So this kind of falls back onto that Dave's question as well. I recommend looking up the video that talks about grouping within pivot tables. If you search for those words with Chandu at the end, you will see my videos on those topics, and then you can watch them. Those are short videos, not 2 hours long, so it should be fun and you will quickly get the answer. Zuki says, did that group feature available in 2013? It is available since 2003 or even before that, I don't know, but at least way back. So it's there for a long time now. Go and use it. Abu Amar says, is it better to use a helper column or use Power Query? It's up to you. I don't know exactly what you're trying to do with the helper column or with Power Query. I am again a big advocate for using Power Query if possible, but each has its own place. So find something that works for you and not too annoying for your users, and just go with that. Gabrielle says, is there a way to show rebuy using date range? There's a more kind of like a data analysis rather than statistical thing. But you should be able to, like, you have to frame the question correctly, and then build the formula or the DAX or whatever else you're using. I would probably attempt this kind of thing in a pivot table rather than with formulas. Feel free to build up some example and start searching for the specific points rather than this more of an open question, I guess. So SR Computer Education says, which is the best way for results analysis of students for 3 years? Again, it's kind of like an open way of asking questions. There is no best way. There is a reasonable way, and there is a way that you may want or not want depending on what is going on. So there are different techniques. For example, let's just say we have the same set of students that are going through a program for 3 years, and then at the end of each year we take a standardized test to understand how their skills are improving. So at the end of each year you measure the same students, and then you want to understand how well they did, and then maybe establish a hypothesis saying they have improved their performance or they have not improved their performance. So if that is the question, then you would want to take all the measurements of these students for each year. And at that point, the basic starting point would be to do an analysis of variance. So again, you can use any other tests, or you can even do like an eyeball test to see, for example, you're helping people to drive. So first year, end of the course, you take a driving test and there are 3 crashes. Second year, you take the driving test and there is 1 crash. And third year driving test, no crashes. You don't need any other test to know that. I mean, if someone takes 3 years to learn, that's a different thing. But so there are different ways. But let's say you got course or whatever in this computer, Excel. You could then go and do the variance analysis. And then the starting point would be they didn't improve. Or there is no variation in the scores from 3 groups. But later, once if you find that yes, there is, then you will go and investigate what is changing. So there's different ways of doing this. I would probably read up a little bit more because the type of tests that you run to establish any of your things will differ from industry to industry, situation to situation. Bhardiya Khorshidi says, hello, Mr. Chandu, is adequately supposed that having a good knowledge in SQL, Excel, Power BI, DAX be hired? Okay, I'm not going to address this because this is not related to data topic that we are talking about here. What is important for a job depends on many other things. So Manju says, how do we know that the data require statistical analysis and regular analysis? So how do we know whether to even do statistical analysis or not? Normally, I did ask this question as a community post a while ago as well on my YouTube channel. The question was like this. You got a bunch of data from your boss or customer, and they simply said, analyze this. What would you do? And there were some very, very good and great answers in there. Like people were saying, we'll do this, we will start from here. So many times in real life, that is really where a data analyst would find themselves. They'll just get a dump of data and then they're expected to analyze. So in my perspective, knowing the statistical analysis technique is one of the skills that you need to have. Then it's like the toolkit, like you have those tools, you would then go and use them to see, is this working or that working? If you don't know what to do, then you're going to struggle way more. So that's where I think the starting point is. How to know whether to apply statistical analysis or not is, again, we can debate about this all. But if I'm looking at business data of what is actually happening and I have complete data, then I will straight away jump into data analysis rather than asking more of a statistical question. When we are doing the data analysis, again, we might be representing outcomes in statistics. So we might calculate average sales or what is the median purchase amount and all of that. So you are using statistics irrespective of whether you do business or data analysis or statistical analysis. But if you have got all data, then you'd probably start off with straight on full analysis. Whereas if you've got a sample or a representative data, then starting with statistical analysis is a good starting point. Again, there is quite a bit of nuance here, so I don't want to kind of paint this in broad strokes. I'll leave it there. Feel free, others who are practicing more, to add their pointers. Yusuf says, can you quickly demonstrate how to do sampling using data analysis tool, please? Sure, I would love to do that. I haven't done much of that kind of sampling. I don't even remember when the last time I did it, so I don't know exactly what it does, but I do know that it exists, so I'm going to use it. I'll give it a go. We'll go data analysis, pick on the sampling thing. Okay, input range. So I'm just going to select my entire table. Random, and I want just 100 samples in the new worksheet. Okay. Ooh, this is weird. It says contains non-numeric data. That's not good. So it doesn't even want to sample non-numeric data. I don't know whether that's a limitation or we are... Oh, probably enable that and then try again. No, it doesn't like that. So apparently it only wants to sample numeric data. I'm going to try this on flight distance column and then see. Okay. Okay. What? Oh no, the range is wrong. Okay, so these are 100 flight distances randomly sampled. I guess you'll have to rerun if you want another 100 flight distances. Not sure why they would stop only for numeric data. Like, I would imagine internally there is a random function that just picks a row. So why can't... I have no idea. Philip says, well, I finished my coffee. That was a Starbucks Trenta session today. Dynamic array functions and formulas are a game changer. You made me live stream loyal customer. Thank you. Big thanks to you, Philip, for showing up again. It was good to have you. And of course, everyone as well. And yeah, I'll see you again sometime next month, I guess. Sachin says, hi Chandu, I am a data analyst too. Your tips help me a lot and save me from embarrassment in front of my boss. That is awesome, Sachin. More power to you. And a proud liberal asks, can you describe how add to data model option in the pivot table changes the output? So this is a bit more technical, but essentially at a visual level, there is no difference. So for example, this pivot here is a non-data model pivot. So if you notice my pivot table fields list, it's going to just show that single table fields. Now, where is my... So this, oh, this is also... And this one... There was a table with the... Oh, it's probably this one. Yeah. And this pivot table here is a data model pivot. And notice that here you will have some additional options. So it says active all. And then the data is shown as table and fields, because with the data model, you have the ability to work with multiple tables as well, apart from being able to add extra calculations and all of those. So that's really at a visual level how things differ. Internally, they're both pivot tables, but these ones have few more limitations and few more features. So for example, we are not able to group things. It will say cannot group that selection, whereas in a non-data model pivot, you can group, but you can add calculations. Abu says, thank you so very much, Chandu. I really enjoyed this live stream. Thank you so much, Abu, for joining me. I hope you have learned something valuable, and see you again next time. Ooh, Philip says, pick only the ID column. Yeah, I think we've kind of did that with the flight distance, but it would only get 100 random IDs using probably some index match or VLOOKUP. You can then get the data, I guess. Karsihma Fatima says, how do we combine two or more pivot tables and perform analysis? Data model is a good option if you have multiple tables of data. I don't know what you mean by more pivot tables. Like, are you trying to combine two pivot tables? If so, I don't normally suggest that because they're not really built for that. So you would want to combine the tables and then build one pivot for analysis. Philip says 5 stars, and then Yusuf says thank you. Shabari says okay, so he's giving an explanation of how to do that. That's cool. Blanche says, thank you very much. This has been helpful. See you next month. Thank you so much. See you next month indeed. It was really fun talking. We did have a couple of hiccups with the Excel freezing every now and then to add a bit of dramatic effects to the whole live stream thing. But all in all, I am happy with how far we have gotten and how much we have covered. Philip is adding some extra comments there. And yeah, feel free to put any questions. I'll hang around for another 10 minutes. Otherwise, it was really fun catching up with all of you and sharing some of the statistical analysis techniques. I hope this has given you some ideas or some inspiration or some practical hands-on tips on how to use Excel to do this kind of analysis. If you have been watching this far and you want a copy of this file, just check the video description. Probably not right away, but half an hour, 1 hour later, I'll be able to go back and add that. So that's it. I am gonna go downstairs, get I guess some more coffee, or maybe get the breakfast directly and then have another cup of coffee and then enjoy my rest of weekend. It's already Saturday. The sun is out and it looks like a beautiful day outside. So it's going to be fun. So thank you so much for everyone who's coming. And if you have got questions, put them there. Otherwise, I'm going to bid adieu at this point. Manju says, can you add regular analysis topics? Sure. In fact, there is many videos on that side of things on the channel already. If you are looking for a way to do data analysis within Excel, then I recommend that you check one of my videos. I'm just going to pull this up here quickly. So this is the video. I put a link there. I'm going to open that now on the Chrome as well. I don't want it to start playing or anything. But this particular video, beginner to pro free Excel data analysis course, this is one of my most watched videos, and for a very good reasons. It hasn't even been up for a year and it has got 438,000 views. I'm not trying to brag or anything. This is a very, very helpful less than 1 hour course that will take you through the entire journey of data analysis in a business situation. So it will combine statistical, exploratory, and data analysis, visualization, all sorts of things. There's a bunch of sample files and some really helpful discussion as well. Like you can see the 670 comments. So many people sharing their perspective and ideas of how to do this or that. So yes, highly recommend that you watch this. Even people who are doing statistical analysis, this is a good place to go and get some additional insights. So feel free to check that one out. You can Google search for that directly. Beginner to Pro Data Analysis course from Chandu. Or if you go to my channel, you'll probably find it somewhere there. So that's that. George says, where do we subscribe? I guess that's apparent, but if you go there should be a subscription link on the YouTube right there in the live stream as well somewhere. Just hit on that and you should be able to subscribe. Philip says, time to enjoy your Saturday. You earned it. Say hi to Joe and the kids in Excel. Bye. Thanks, Philip. I will. Sandeep says, how to manage big data for organizational data analysis without Power BI or Tableau. It's a dicey question. Ideally, I would want to use a proper tool that is helpful in analyzing big data, because large data sets can create more than one problem when they're dealt with in Excel. But if you could not use anything and you must produce the analysis, then I guess you can use Excel. Excel, while people think Excel has a limitation of 1 million rows, so there's 1 million row limit. So we think only 1 million is what is possible. Excel can actually handle data sets that are more than 1 million through the data model functionality. Again, if you search on my channel for more than 1 million rows Excel, you'll find a video. There might be other videos out there from other creators as well. So feel free to watch them. That'll give you some ideas of how to use Excel for building bigger data sets. Just a note of caution though, I do not recommend going through that route all the time, because Excel is a bit, it's not really built for that. It can do it, but just because it can doesn't mean you should. You should use a proper tool that is built for it, and you should never store such large volumes of data in Excel alone. You would want to keep that in a proper secure place like a database and just get them into Excel for analysis. So hopefully that gives you some idea. And of course, you did come back with some saying, I'm using Power Query and I watched every video. Yeah, so you basically run out of the options at this point. I would ideally say go and get free Power BI desktop and use it, and tell your organization that it's time to grow up and use proper big boy tools for larger data sets. There is only so much you can do before you will hit the roadblock if you continue to use tools that are not built for that sort of stuff. All right, that is it. I'm gonna see what is Karsima says. I'm having 6 files when I have pivot table in all files. How do I add these pivot tables and perform the analysis? Oh, that's what you're asking. So this is something that, again, ideally you might think you would have to add the 6 pivot tables. But I would say flip the question and then say, why not add the 6 data sets and then build one pivot table? So that's where the next technique comes in, which is how to add these data sets. And this is where Power Query is helpful. You can see there are some Power Query videos as well I've done. Check them out. There is actually another video that I posted a while ago that talks about how to combine data from different files using Power Query. So check that one out, apply that, and that's going to give you a better alternative. You could use that to combine raw data. Hypothetically, you could also use it to combine pivot tables. Francis says, hi Chandu, greetings from Nigeria. Do you have any video course on using Python with Excel? I have surprising news for you. From the last 1 week, all of us, I don't know whether how many of you know this, but I have got 2 kids, Nishant and Nakshatra. They are now 12 years old, and Joe, my wife. So we have all decided that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to spend an hour in the evening learning Python. My kids are new to programming, whereas both of us have fairly good, solid programming background, but we never learned Python. We only used C, Java, and a few other programming languages. So we kind of set ourselves a goal that Tuesdays and Thursdays, sometimes maybe one of those days, sit for an hour, learn Python, build some code. So I have been writing a little bit of Python code. It has been only 1 week, but my goal this year is to learn Python myself, become a little bit more proficient in it. And once I am confident enough that I can actually talk, or I can I can manage my way around it, I will talk a little bit more about it on the channel as well. I don't know if I'll actually make a course, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a little bit more on that side. If you are looking for something, you don't want to wait that long and you must learn Python today, then I recommend Programming with Mosh. That's the channel name. Go there. He has got a couple of good videos. We are using that video as a starting point anyway. So that's a good option. If you got LinkedIn Learning or something else, or you're using Skillshare or whatever, just search for Python courses there and go through that. As Perry says, please try Real Statistics add-in, which is free and has many facilities for advanced analysis. That's a good suggestion. I have not tried that. I'm very hesitant to add any add-ins to Excel, mainly because my main job is to teach people, so I don't want to ruin my Excel experience by adding things that don't exist in majority of my viewers' computers. So I don't do that, but yeah, someone else could try that and let me know in the comments how that is. Someone says, is there any way we can have multiple data types in a single column in Power Query? No, Power Query is strongly typed, so it doesn't like it. If you put that, then it's going to simply say it's a alphanumeric, and then that's going to create downstream problems for you. Keegan says, which books are you using to learn Python? So this is a bit dicey. The book situation here in New Zealand is it's a little atrocious, to be honest. Probably if there is another fellow Kiwi watching this, they might even agree with me or they might contradict me. But when I try to go online to look for a book to purchase, most of the Python books are like close to $100+. So I'm thinking, not gonna get a book until I am at a stage where book reference will help me more. But our local library does stock quite a few Python books. So I think Crash Course with Python is a book that we previously borrowed some time back. I don't have that now, but I'm gonna go to the library next week and get that. And it does have a free e-library as well, through which we can borrow multiple books. So I did add a couple more books to my list, and I'm still we are still at a place where we are getting into the basics. So once the kids are up to speed, then we're going to start reading book chapters. And then D says, Kindle in NZ, yes, super expensive in it, yes. So there you go. I do have a Kindle. I find that reading technical books in Kindle is a bit hard because maybe they're not built for Kindle. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to revisit the books. So yeah, I'm gonna. But the Libby or the library ebook reader app, it opens up in the browser, so I can read it. So that's what I've been really doing. Read the book on my phone screen, but connect it to TV so we can all read that for a specific screen. Okay, so that's that. I think Sandeep has something. I'm an ops manager and I'm curious about data science. I like your videos, solve my org concern. Not really sure that concern is, so feel free to post that. I'll be around for a few more minutes, but otherwise you can leave a comment down below and then if possible I'll help you. I use ebooks all the time on my iPad and do annotations. Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good to know. We no longer have an iPad. It's too old and it wouldn't respond, but I'll probably have to figure something else on that. I think on a desktop you can annotate as well. Fia says, love from India. Thank you so much, brother. Love to you as well. And Ahmad says, sorry to repeat, do you do R programming? Any tips for an Excel being heavy when working with 60K plus rows? So I did do quite a bit of R programming. And if you're an R programming enthusiast with keen eyes, you might have spotted this red book there. This is R for DS. So this is the book that I used to learn, and I did write some articles. And if I'm not wrong, or maybe my memory is not wrong, I did have a video on my channel as well that talks about how to use R charts within Power BI. So I did a little bit, not too much to call myself an R expert or anything. But it's just that, because I don't work in a job or a scenario where I'm required to use this. Sometimes you either use it or you lose it. So if you ask me to write an R code today, I wouldn't really know what to do. I'll have to refer to the book before do it. Yeah. For the second one, Excel being heavy when working with 60K plus rows, it shouldn't really be heavy. I mean, we did have some hiccups with our sample data today, but that's something else rather than Excel being heavy. Normally 60,000 rows should be nothing on a reasonable computer. But yeah, if it is too heavy, I would say use pivot tables for as much of the heavy lifting as possible. And that should, yeah. So you come back with, oh, that is amazing. I plan to read it. I'm an enthusiast. Not sure you plan to switch to Python. I'm not switching or anything. I just want to learn. I'm really curious. And so I learn R, I learn Python, I learn Power Query. Whatever comes, I just learn. Okay, so that's that. I think Sandeep had this managing regional data set for MIS apart from my own KRAs, because I love to do that. My organization using Oracle, that's job affecting instant decision making. Okay, not sure what the question is. I guess you will have that question. Srirang says, following you for nearly 6 months really helped me a lot in MS Excel. Thank you so much, Srirang, and all the very best to you. Okay, so I'm using Excel but unable to manage big data types. Yeah, I think this is same as what we were talking about earlier. It's a good idea to use the right tool for the job. When you have lots and lots of data, Excel is probably not the tool for you. You will have to think about what other applications can be used. And if you are in a situation, I mean, you make best of what you have. That's really how I have been in client situations where we couldn't use Power BI. The Excel was the only choice. And then many times it's not even Excel 365. It could be Excel 2013 or 2010. But whatever is there, I think a data analyst, a good data analyst will have to work under constraints. There is no unlimited freedom anyway. So I probably that's, I don't know whether that's helpful or not, but that's what it is. I would like an example dictionary workbook. Why? I mean, there's good help there, so probably start reading. But again, I would not bother learning everything for the sake of learning. I would go and start from a more application point of view. What is it that I need to use? And then go and learn those relevant bits. Because otherwise it can be really overwhelming and almost no use at all if you don't use them. All right, so that's that. I'm going to just read this comment from D and then hang up. Found your 50 ways to analyze data course really helpful. Thank you so much, D. So those of you who are keen to get a bit more advanced statistical stuff, that might be something that you could consider, which is one of my courses. So if you go to my website, look at classes, I run a really advanced data analysis course called 50 Ways to Analyze Data. And it kind of goes into quite in-depth into various types of data analysis. So feel free to check that one out. And if this is something that you want and you want a solid hand-holding and more in-depth instruction on how to do certain analysis, you can read this up. Yeah, this is really in depth. Like for example, it talks about some of the algorithmic implementation of KNN or k-means techniques, etc. So check that one out and go for it if that's something that you would enjoy. All right, so that's a little bit. I think I'm gonna hang up now. It has been good fun talking to you all, and I wish you all the very best and have fun in the weekend. And I'll catch you again next month, last Friday, for the live stream. And of course, there'll be lots of videos in between now on the channel. So if this has been helpful to you and you enjoyed, feel free to push a comment or share this video with some of your friends or colleagues who could use this sort of information. Thank you, and I'll catch you all next month. Bye-bye.